Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our first session of the afternoon. This is on search engine marketing, best practices and keys to driving results. Before I get started, I want to thank you all for attending. I know we have a bunch of people who are already part of the SOCAST family. So for those that are part of the family, thank you for your support and for participating, and for the new partners that are online just observing, thank you for attending and dedicating some time. I want to introduce you to our panelists today. We've got three distinguished members of our group. I'm going to start with Thomas Penkovchin. So Thomas is a member of our SOCAST team here. He is our digital strategist. He has been with us for over 2 years. He's a lifelong learner. I think he's gone for several courses on his own time just to kind of hone his skills. And he is also our resident baseball fanatic. So if you have any questions about baseball, Thomas is definitely the guy to ask. And on digital strategy, he is really honing his skills, and we're thrilled to not only have him on our team, but also have him part of this panel. So Thomas, thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Glad to be here.
The next person I want to introduce is an old friend of mine, and our newest member of our SOCAST team is John Stewart. So I've had the pleasure of working with John, for almost I guess about 20 years ago, John, when we started back at Rogers in Ottawa. Had some fun launching XFM. John at the time was building our websites and was promoted quickly to a regional director role in managing content and websites for multiple stations with the Rogers Group. He went on to be the director of sales for Post Media, and he started with us 7 days ago. So this is we've put him right to work in co-hosting this webinar with us. So John, thank you so much for attending.
Just throw me into the deep end, and I like to introduce myself as the fat version of Victor, just so everyone knows.
As a joke, we were going to try to dress the exact same way, since we've got the same glasses, same hairstyle, and all that. And then our subject matter expert today is a very old friend of mine, Ryan Bishop. Ryan is joining us from B Media Shop. I literally have known Ryan his entire life. I worked with his father in the radio business. I remember when he used to come into the office as a young lad. And he's really been cutting his teeth in the digital space for the last 6 years, really focused in on search engine marketing. So Ryan has been really helpful working with our clients here at SOCAST. He's managed a number of campaigns for us. In his career, although when you say someone's only been doing something for 6 years, it doesn't sound like a long time, but in the digital space, that's like a very seasoned veteran. So the fact that, Ryan, I was doing some quick math last night, that if you've transacted over $10 million in search engine marketing campaigns, and you've done that over 6 years, you've probably executed over 3,300 different campaigns. So I would put that in the category of expert. So I really appreciate you not working with us, but being part of this session today.
Thank you so much, Victor. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's get started with our session. Really, what today is all about is education. Our objective here, in my time at SOCAST, I would say that the biggest questions that I get are about search engine marketing and search engine optimization. So really, our goal here is to educate our participants and really just share some best practices. We don't have any sales pitch. We don't have anything for anyone to buy. It's really just to educate and to share some best practices. So let's start with kind of some data points. So John, I'll kind of set the stage, and then I'll let you kind of run through some of the stuff. But this is a massive space. It's a $136 billion industry worldwide just in search engine marketing. You've been exposed to this over a number of years. So what are some other things you'd add in there in terms of like the market space and size and scope of categories?
Well, from the search perspective, it is about 40% of all digital dollars spent in a market. So it is a sizable portion of anyone's market digital advertising that's happening. 60% of those searches are actually happening on a phone. Huge shift that's happened in overall digital marketing. That's even more reinforced when it comes to search. And if you're in specific categories like the restaurant category, you know how mobile search is incredibly important. And actually the near me component. So if I'm trying to find an Italian restaurant near me, you want to be first on that search so that people can click your ad and then book a reservation. Incredibly important in certain categories. When you're actually bottom of the funnel and you're looking for people who are actually going to buy a product, 68% of all clicks actually have a buyer intent word like shop or purchase. So they are at the point where they want to give someone money. They're just trying to figure out who that is. And a really key thing as well that's influenced actually by smart speakers is that we're less about keywords when we're talking about search, more about key phrases. So if you have an Alexa, a Google Home, or an Apple device, you are used to asking it questions. People use search like that, where they're actually writing down a phrase rather than searching for a vacuum cleaner Tucson, for instance. And then lastly, it's part of everyone's marketing. 80% of all businesses, 40% of SMBs do search in some form as part of their marketing. So if we're ignoring this, we're ignoring a large part of the dollars that are being spent by our clients, and we're not actually effectively delivering campaigns.
And I think that's a good segue, John, because part of the reason that search is so important to the radio industry is that we know, and there's all kinds of stats. I think Thomas, you and I covered this off in one of our other webinars, that radio drives search, and the problem with what we face in the radio industry is that we drive a lot of search activation, but we get no credit for it. So I think part of the reason we wanted to focus in on search engine marketing today with Ryan is that when you add the power of radio with the power of search engine marketing, you really get that 1-2 punch that allows you to own those local relationships and take a bigger share of those ad dollars. So let's get started with just some basics. So the first basic is there's a difference between SEO and SEM. So I'll start with John and go, so John, what is search engine optimization?
So it's a process of actually working on your website behind the scenes on improving its organic rank. So everyone knows when you Google something, there's a component at the top of the page that's the paid, and then everything else below that. SEO is good practices that are helping your organic rank. So you are as top on the organic listings below the paid as possible.
So Ryan, I'm going to segue to you now as our subject matter expert. So what's the difference between search engine optimization and search engine marketing?
So search engine optimization is all organic, whereas search engine marketing, or SEM, is advertising on Google, Microsoft, or Yahoo search engines. And this provides you the opportunity to have your name at the top of the search results pages. Based on search queries a potential consumer types in. They're also referred to as pay-per-click ads.
And Thomas, I know that there's a lot of technology around how these sites are optimized and in terms of where they rank. So I know some people know what the term crawling is, but maybe you can just help the attendees on the session understand what is crawling. When Google crawls your site, what does that mean?
Yeah, so crawling is basically the process where the search engine like Google starts to scan all of the elements that resides on a website. It scans its content, its context, any metadata or meta tags. They're all being scanned by the Google search engine, and they're also trying to see relevancy. So people that are searching up for different keywords and different phrases, depending on the relevancy tied on that website, will determine the quality score through the crawling session.
So Ryan, I want to ask you a question because this has been asked of us a number of times. If I have a poorly made website or a website that is not optimized, can search engine marketing actually benefit me?
Well, Victor, that's a great question. Unfortunately, most times the answer is no. To be more specific, if your website is not mobile friendly, if your website has low quality content, or low quality images, if there are technical issues, and actually I think the biggest one is if your website loads slowly, it's a little like throwing your money away in the world of Google. So if any of these apply to your site, search engine marketing is probably not for you at this time.
Now, John, you've done a lot of work with websites and optimizing. You also sit on the board of the Snowsuit Fund in Ottawa. So maybe you can walk through with everyone. How can you tell if your website is optimized?
First, as we talked about being mobile first, is check it on your phone. If it's mobile friendly, Google references your mobile site before it looks at your desktop site. And if you have an MDOT, so if you have a completely separate site, a non-responsive website, Google doesn't like that. You've got to look at, making sure that it's one site that functions over all devices. An incredibly important part when Google is crawling your site. Beyond that, you start to look at the behind the scenes, as Thomas said, the quality of the images, the text that's behind the scenes that can be used. So for instance, alt text is maybe techy for a lot of people here, but when images aren't loaded up, there is a text behind the scene that Google does crawl and says, okay, what is this photo? Those alt texts can be used to help drive keywords that people will use to find your website without actually impacting your overall user design. So there's a lot of really technical components of it. And you can also look at reporting. So I pulled a very quick report of the Snowsuit Fund in Ottawa. We're actually going through a website audit right now, looking at SEO because we want to rank higher for things like donations in Ottawa, children's charities, all these things that are important for our fundraising. And we're finding we're not ranking where we need to be. Tools like this tool or other tools that SOCAST has at its disposal can very easily look at your website and give us actionable items right away.
Excellent. So Thomas, you've actually built some sites, and we've been involved in some client meetings about and providing research on how sites can be optimized. Is there like do you have like a checklist or some best practices in terms of like what does a client need to make sure of before they get into any search engine marketing campaigns, or that what are the key things that they need to worry about in terms of checklist?
Yeah, I think the SEO checklist really narrows down to 5 key elements or 5 key points here, Victor. The first one would be to ensure that there's a simplified user journey and overall navigation for users that or audiences that attend to the website. You want to make sure that these audiences can get from page to page, from form fill to thank you page very seamlessly. The second point that I would mention is to ensure, again, that there's high quality content and context that's published regularly. So just like a article or a magazine company would do or a newspaper company would do to try and get new articles out distributed to the masses, they do that regularly, and so should you as just a standard practice. The third point I'd bring up here is to ensure that you have strong and relevant backlinks. And these backlinks are really going to ensure that your user mapping is on point, so that relevancy stays 100%, and that they're strong, so that when users attend to your website and they click on these links to go to other web pages, we're still talking about the same sort of products, we're still talking about the same sort of services, and we're not getting off topic. The next thing I would recommend is to ensure you have strong alt text. Just like John mentioned a few moments ago, it's that text that appears behind an image to ensure that when users look up specific phrases or keywords, there's still a high chance that you rank on the Google search query. Sitemaps and meta tags, of course, these things can get very complex, but it's basically just the back end portion of the website to ensure that everything stays nice and tidy and highly competitive. The last point that I would mention here, Victor, is to have a strong about us or story. And the reason why this is so crucial is because you need to build trust with your audiences. And the best way to do that is to tell them more about yourself, tell them about the company, right? If you have a chance to sell to an audience without actually meeting them, this is your chance to do that. So ensuring you have that on your side is a very, very important asset.
So before engaging in a search engine marketing campaign, you'd strongly recommend going through this checklist, making sure your site's optimized so that you're putting yourself in the best position to succeed.
Absolutely. If we had a search engine marketing campaign that was active as consumers, and we went to that website by clicking on one of the ads on the Google search query, and that website was just blank, right? How far can we really get as a consumer and get through that user journey? So this is definitely a very important element.
And I would just remind all of our partners on the line that if you have any questions about this stuff, because look, some of this can be very technical, that we have a team that can certainly help you kind of get behind the scenes, look at all of this data to really help you understand and navigate through this space. So now that we've checked our website, we know that it's optimized, it's ready to go. I think one of the most critical things is understanding the customer journey. So for those of you who have gone through our sales enablement and our training sessions, we focus a lot of energy on this. So I'll start with you, John. Just walk us through kind of the customer journey in terms of what it means to the buying cycle.
We were talking about buying our first cars before the webinar started. I think dealerships and cars are something that most of us go through, and we've been through that process. We know it's a long process when we're looking for a car. We're only going to go to those car dealers that we're aware of, that we know have good branding, that have a good image, that are trustworthy in our local community. And I think with Google put out a study a couple weeks ago that suggested that there's 600 different data points that people go through between the awareness and consideration phase of doing research. When you're talking to your clients, you know that their customers are more educated than they've ever been coming into their business. They've done all this research before, going from the awareness all the way to the point where they actually want to spend money. It's important for advertisers to realize what their goal they're trying to accomplish is, and each part of the bucket, each part of the funnel accomplishes different types of goals, whether that's to generate interest, to generate demand, or to actually create an action or a sale.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on the top funnel, mid funnel, lower funnel, because I'm gonna segue over to Ryan, but this really, like search engine marketing, is really focused on the mid funnel and lower funnel. It's really not designed to build awareness. So Ryan, when you think of the key benefits of search engine marketing, what are some of the key things that you share with your partners?
So there's several great elements of SEM. I think number one would be that you only pay when someone clicks on your ad and then lands on your website. Of course, if they see your ad and advertise. But if they do click, just like that, the consumer started the journey to purchase with your business. So let's say a consumer is browsing for a product like yours, sees your ad, does not click. Later, they continue shopping. They see your ad again. Right there, there's some added peace of mind even before they get to your website. They know that you are a legitimate player in this space. Also, with the cost per click bidding strategy, we as digital strategists are able to decide which keyword should be worth a $3 click and which should be worth $5. That is why the cost per click method is best. Now, the second great element is when someone is on your website, a consumer reaching out to you is only one click away. With conventional media, however, a consumer has to remember what the message was. They then have to revisit the idea of contacting the business at a different time. With Google search, say this person wants to buy a vacuum. In that second, all the information they need about pricing, specs, location, and how to get in touch with your business is right there in front of them. Google search makes it too easy to buy from your competition, and that's why your business needs to be there.
Yeah, I think this is those are some great points, Ryan. I mean, I always go back to my my early days in radio and my old manager saying, like the low-hanging fruit. Like these are people that are actually searching for a solution, so they're already predisposed to getting ready. Like they've already made a decision that they need information because they're ready to make a purchase. So this is like the pulling people into your ecosystem for a client is really critical, because this isn't about just getting your fair share of the business. This is about stealing your unfair share from your competitors. So I think this is a really critical space to understand the role that search engine marketing plays in terms of the customer journey. So the first step that we need to build out, Ryan, is building out your keyword strategy. So just walk everyone through what that means and what it looks like.
Absolutely. So the first question, of course, we have to ask ourselves is, what are keywords? And keywords are words and phrases describing your product or service that you choose to help determine when and where your ad will be displayed on Google. For example, if you are a vacuum store that sells vacuums and you also do repairs, you would want location keywords such as vacuum store near me, or brand keywords like Dyson vacuum. We are also going to be looking for keywords built around services that you provide. For example, in this case would be vacuum repair and central vacuum installation. Now, there are other sorts of keywords that we like to use. The biggest one, I think, is competitive keywords. And what this is the names of your competition. This is an incredibly prudent strategy in SEM. What we're going to do is we're going to add your competitor's name as a keyword so that when someone searches for their business, your ad is going to show. And if your competitor is not buying Google search at that time, you're going to have the advantage because your ad's going to be actually higher up on the page than theirs. Say, for example, you're a Toyota dealership. We would actually add Honda Civic as a competitive keyword. That way, when someone searches Honda Civic, your Toyota Corolla ad is going to show, because we know that someone searching for a Civic is the exact type of customer you're going to look for. And the last one I'm going to be discussing today is negative keywords. These are words that we add to your campaign so that your ads will never show when these words are typed in. For example, if you're a vacuum store that does not do repairs and someone searches for vacuum repairs, we don't want your ad to show for that. So we're going to add repairs as a negative keyword.
And is there a magic number of keywords, phrases, Ryan, that you suggest to your advertisers?
So I wouldn't say that there's a magic number. We usually think that 20 is a good start. That's a fair start. So we're going to get the 20 keywords and we're going to continue to build from there once the campaign gets going. There's no maximum whatsoever. All that matters is that the keyword gets enough searches per month to trigger your ad in the location that we're targeting. As an example, once again, I'm using a vacuum store. You sell a part that's called a Dyson DC21A filter. You're not going to want to bid on that wording because with something that specific, there's not going to be enough people searching for it. This is something that we in the industry call low search volume. That's why it's usually best to start with 20 or 30 relatively general keywords, and we're going to work from there. We're going to use the tools and that Google provides us, and that's going to help us build. And of course, this conversation continues with the client as the campaign continues.
And you mentioned tools, so I want to segue over to John, because look, Google's a big company. They must have some of these things automated. So explain to everyone what Keyword Planner is and kind of the pros and cons of using Keyword Planner if someone's doing it on their own.
To start off, you may not necessarily know what people are searching for. So Keyword Planner is a great way of actually starting by looking in your own individual markets, what is the volume of searches that are happening. So if there's 100,000 searches for a term or 1,000 searches for a term, you may change your marketing in relation to that. It can also help your SEO as well. So if you're finding there are certain keywords of your business that you aren't incorporating in your website, in the content you're producing, start using those keywords because people are searching for them. So Keyword Planner is a great way to see the size of the overall market that you're trying to trade in, what other competitors are potentially using as well, and giving you great tips on content ideas.
So Ryan, now I know I want to be in search engine marketing. I understand the customer journey. I've started to work with my AE on building my keyword strategy. What's the next thing that I need to do?
So I would say the next thing is know your trading area. So what location radius is right for your business so we can go after Google ads in that area. So you got to ask yourself where do you currently get leads? Where do you get sales? Also, where do you hope to start generating traction? So if you're already getting sales in a certain area, let's start with that and work from there. Of course, it's always best to fish where the fish are. It's important to note that with location targeting tools in the Google Ads platform, we're actually able to target specific postal codes that are working for you and exclude the ones, that are not.
So Thomas, adding to that, like once you kind of know your trading area, what are some of the tools that when you're talking to the AEs, what are some of the tools that you suggest in terms of pulling this information to find out exactly where your clients are coming from or where they could be coming from?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a number of analytical tools that are available, that we use and that many others use to understand that a little bit better. Of course, with the metrics that's collected as well, we're able to narrow in from where the performances are happening in real time, and that's going to allow us to identify where and how we should be able to acquire those users.
And I think John, you were touching on some other areas. Like I know earlier when we were prepping for this, like point of sale surveys, online orders, but you had mentioned social media is another area that you could start to aggregate data.
Yeah, your analytics, if you have not popped open under the hood and looked at your social media analytics or your Google analytics, you can drill down and actually see what areas of the city people are coming from. And zip code or postal code targeting is an option to look at that. We've all been to a grocery store before where they ask you your zip code at the till because they're taking a survey because they want to see how their flyers are doing. And then they're adjusting their business accordingly. That sort of level of detail is very, very available in digital and actually provides a great counter to those clients who are maybe questioning being in a giant flyer pack. Coming from a newspaper background, I know that was a constant conversation we were having where we're one of 1,000 flyers that are being delivered to your door. How do you know people are seeing it? We can get the same targeting on digital and make sure it actually gets in front of the right eyes.
I would say,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
No problem. I would say that, as well, because we're heading into a cookieless world in 2023, this is really the time for a lot of advertisers to start heavily considering the value of first-party data. So ensuring that you are collecting the right data of your user bases, of your audiences in real time, I think is going to be a really big asset to have moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Thomas. Like in terms of that one-on-one communication, there's a lot of ways to communicate with your clientele before they even come into a store. Through and database marketing or newsletters is one way to, people sign up for it because they've asked to have a relationship with the business. So if you don't have a strategy for that, then you definitely want to work with your AE to build out some type of first party data strategy to be able to continue that one-on-one relationship. So I think that's a great point. Okay, Ryan, so now I know my trading area. What's the next thing I need to do in order to arm you with the information to build a good search engine marketing campaign?
So I would say the next thing is you got to understand the customer journey and where they're at in the funnel. Like I said earlier, with Google search and with SEM in general, the consumer is actively searching for your product. They've already passed what we call the awareness stage. They're now considering a purchase. That's why they typed in the search bar. They are looking to be sold by your website. And that, of course, is the consideration phase of our funnel. So as long as we do our job in finding the right person to search the right phrase that converts in past history, and we bring them to the right page on your site, from there, it's up to them to call, fill out a form, or visit your business. And that would be the conversion phase. By using a search that's applicable to your business, the consumer, of course, has already showed interest. Unlike conventional media that kind of assumes that the people who consume message are interested, Google search knows if they're interested. Not only can you make sure that your business shows up for the right phrase, but we're able to target people of a specific age group at a specific time of day on the right device all at once. Google search really is the best tool for targeting your ideal customer at the right time in the sales funnel.
And I think Thomas, we had touched on in our sales training, and when we've been out on sales calls together with AEs, really doing a good discovery meeting in terms of having clear objectives or KPIs from the client, and really understanding with the client, what do you want that consumer to do once they get to your site? So maybe you can touch on that a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, understanding the objectives is going to allow us to make sure that we're paying attention to the right metrics and the right key performance indicators. So that if our goal is to drive X amount of purchases or conversions, in other terms, we're measuring that. And you know, of course, we're going to do our part to connect the pipes and make sure that we have access to those types of analytics. There's other objectives out there, Victor, that are also available depending on the stage of where that advertiser is in that time, such as just driving general awareness. And if you would just like to get eyeballs on your brand, eyeballs on your logo, then of course we'd be paying attention to different sets of analytics like impressions or how many times these ads have been served. So different channels definitely have a lot of these capabilities, but we like to stick to the objective-based tailor approach as we're building these out.
And John, you touched earlier on search being so mobile focused. There's some other specific strategies involved in mobile that you want to make sure that you adhere to, correct?
Agreed, and it goes back to those objectives. So if your objective is getting people to your website, that's one. Your objective may be getting a phone call. So you could either direct people directly to your contact us page, or you can use a Google extension to actually put the phone number in your ad. That's a clickable link that when on their phone will automatically load up and start a call. You can add other services beyond that to actually record the call and do training with your sales staff. There's a lot of other options once you begin to look at it from a digital phone perspective. But this is a very clear thing that I find a lot of businesses don't take advantage of, is if your goal is phone calls, make your ad a phone call ad.
Yeah, I think this goes back to John, in terms of understanding the customer journey and understanding the client objectives and understanding what you want the consumer to do. If you want them to phone, then you don't need to drive them to the website. You could just send them right to the phone call and click, and they're going to know exactly how the campaign is working.
Yeah, if you're one who wants to actually go to the website and do more investigation, learn more about the business, the link is still there. And if you add other extensions, you could have other different types of promotional marketing materials on your Google ad, of course. But you've now met the customer where they are with what they want to do and how they want to interact with you. You are the best setup now to take their money.
So speaking of money, that brings us to the final phase, I think. So Ryan, when you get all of this data together, like how do you know how to build the budget in a search engine campaign? Like what criteria do you piece together?
So I would say, before we even do that, we have to understand your goals. That is, I think, the last phase in building the SEM process. And of course, your goals may be different depending on what business you're in. Some companies are hyper focused on conversions. Some just want to get traffic to the site. Actually, an example of the latter, I was running search ads for a furniture store. This particular furniture store sold every type of furniture at almost every price range. Their goal was just to get people to the website, browse the website, and then from there, visit the store. So after some time, we noticed the best way to do this was by using very general keywords in their campaign. That way they could upsell once they had the customer through the door. This strategy, of course, usually requires a bit of a larger monthly budget. Some businesses may just want consumers to land on the right page, get some information, and convert either through phone call or filling out a form is also a good way to attract leads. Through trial and error, we become the experts at soliciting these actions through search engines. We've made the mistakes with other people's money, so you don't have to make them with yours. And in terms of building your budget, it's really what fits with your business. There are, once again, several Google tools that you can use, and that SOCAS can help you use to decide what budgets work for your business, and that way you're able to get more of the market share than you would otherwise.
John, you had touched on some other things in terms of building budgets, in terms of using keyword planner and kind of understanding the number of searches in your area. Like what are some other factors that, if you're working with an AE and a client, how would you garner what do you think they should be building in terms of a budget per day or per month?
Well, we could just go to the SoCash sell sheet and look at the minimums and just pitch that, not knowing where the size of the market is. That's one tactic, but generally we leave a lot of money on the table when we do that. Over my years in digital media, the number of reps who believe that they know how much money a client is spending on marketing, and that being actually true, is a very big disconnect. Using tools like Keyword Planner, you can actually see how many searches are actually happening in your market. So if you're looking for, again, a vacuum store in Phoenix, you may have 100,000 searches, and if you've just gone to the minimum without doing that research, you may only appear in 2% of those searches or 5% of those searches. And would you, as an AE, really recommend to a client to only be dabbling in that? We know this works. We know that search works for businesses. If we're only taking a small percentage of that, we should look at other options. So starting to understand the size of prize and what the volume is incredibly important. Also the competition. So if you are coming up on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, as we all are, and you're buying search, you know that prices are higher now because the demand is there, the competition is there. If you're in the automotive category, you know that every car dealer is also buying search, and that's been driving the cost of search up for the past 3 years. So more competitive may mean you have to look at a higher budget. But also, if you're selling a car, you know your margins are a couple $1,000 off a car. You may be willing to spend upwards of $100 per lead. So once you get to that cost per action or cost per lead, we can begin to build a proper budget back. And this is where historical data comes in to see what you spent in the past, what your sales have been from that campaign. And then we can begin to look at either alternative keywords, ones that are less competitive, brand new keywords you could expand to as well that may not be touched on by you or your competitors, but there's a volume in there. There's a lot of tools that can actually help get a better campaign to help increase your relevancy and overall reduce your cost per click.
You know, this one's an interesting one, John, because I know when I've been on calls with some AEs, I always ask the question, like, so how do you know how much radio to pitch? Like, what makes a good schedule? And a lot of it kind of goes back to the discovery meeting that you've done with the client and understanding, you know, their profit margins, their volume. And the more you understand about the objective, the more you can prescribe a solution and provide the right budget to your search engine marketing team, so that we can figure out, you know, through the customer journey, if we're trying to bring X number of people to the site and we know the average sale is this and the conversion rates are that, you can almost kind of map out what you want to have happen. And the more information you have is probably going to arm your search engine marketing team with better ammunition to deliver a better campaign.
And if you put it up properly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was going to say, so now that we've got all that, Ryan, so like I've given you all this information, I've given you my trading area, I've given you your budget. Now what happens? Like how does actually SEM work in terms of bidding and activation?
So I guess the next step would be, you know, we're going to build the campaign. We're going to take the keywords that you've given us. We're going to add more that, you know, Google may suggest or that we think might work, that we've seen work with other clients. We're going to build your ads. We're going to put the budget. And then from there, it's up to us as a team to manage it. And the account executives are actually a big part of this. The account executives need to communicate with clients 10 days around after the campaign is launched. You know, the communication factor is key here. We need to find out how many new visitors have been driven to the site. As we know, almost all journey to purchase now includes a trip to the business's website. It's very important to inquire, if the client has seen any increase in lead volume, either through the site, through telephone calls, or walk-in traffic. These conversations are imperative, of course. If the client is not seeing an increase in traffic, then the AE needs to communicate this to SoCast, so our digital strategy team can work to increase and refine performance.
And so do you actually have to bid, like, so you're bidding on every single word phrase, or is it kind of, it's not like a set it and forget it type activity, like you're physically managing and optimizing each phrase that is that we've created?
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, every phrase or every keyword that we're bidding on, oftentimes we're going to set different cost per click bids based on how important those phrases or keywords are to your business. If we're seeing a keyword that converts more often, we're going to want to spend more money on that keyword. And that's really, how you have to look at this hour by hour, day by day, and continue to refine. And I also mentioned earlier that we're able to, go after certain demographics. So if your ideal customer is a 50-year-old woman, and that person is going to convert the most on your site, we're going to have the more expensive keywords going towards that person, so that they're going to see your ads more often, and your site is going to convert better.
And Thomas, you touched on quality score relevancy earlier on, so maybe you can educate everyone on how that determines your position in the rank.
Absolutely. Your quality score really comes down to three main things, which is your click-through rate, how your ads actually look once they're placed online, and your website quality. When you have all of these things sort of understood with a significant bid to back it, then you're setting yourself up for a higher quality score. But that organic element of your website functionality and the quality of the content and the context is really going to cater to having a higher quality score, which usually ranges, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but I believe it's between 1 to 10. So the higher you are up on that quality score, the more relevant you are with your content, and your context will only allow you to appear more frequently and higher in that Google search query.
If I could just add something as well, being number one in a search should almost never be a goal of a campaign, unless the client has a huge ego and they have to be there. Actually, being number two on a search sometimes is better, because we're potentially bidding a bit lower and can still convert the same amount. Or I've seen campaigns where the second most one actually converts better than the first. So there is a lot of variables to play here, and that's where the team at SoCast and at B-Media Shop, looking at campaigns, optimizing for what the end goal is to minimize the amount of money we spend and maximize the results.
Well, I think that brings us to a great segue, John, because one of the key things that we get from clients all the time is like, so how do I know it's working? So maybe Ryan, you can just walk us through, like, what are some of the things the AEs need to look for to ensure that they're on path with delivering results for the client?
So the AE client conversation, like I said, is very important. We need to see, how much traffic the client is getting to their store or their site, how their sales are doing. Like I said, if the sales are not happening, then we need to know that as digital strategists. We can see conversions through our platform that doesn't always necessarily equate to sales. So that's why we all need to be on the same page with search engine marketing. We need to make sure that you're doing well with the current strategy that we have going forward. If something has to change, then we're all going to be a part of that conversation, and we're going to make the changes as necessary.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I would we've got here on the screen about things don't happen overnight is that, like, really at that 90-day mark, you're really starting to get a good understanding of how the campaign's going. You've made some adjustments. The machine has learned. But I've shared this story with clients before that, your website doesn't need to sleep, and it doesn't need to eat and drink any water. It's open 24/7, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and that's part of the reason why search is such a integral part of someone's overall marketing campaign. But if you're starting off in this space, today, it's going to take you kind of 30, 60, 90 days to really understand what's happening, so that you can learn and optimize the campaign moving forward. And I think that's one of the other things that we really pride ourselves on within our team in terms of our real-time reporting. To your point, Ryan, is that you you want to know how many new visitors are coming to the site, what the click-throughs are, what the click-through rates or cost per clicks, the number of conversions, leads, and really all of this should align with the CNA, right, or the discovery meeting. So all of this stuff should go back to ensure that we're delivering what the client expected at the beginning of the campaign. So I thought I would summarize best practices before we part company. We're going to have this this deck available so that you could download it from our site. But these are really kind of the key things that that Ryan kind of pointed out, and I think it really starts with understanding the customer journey and who you are seeking to attract. And we always like to say in our proposals, like, start with the end in mind and understand what you want the consumer to do. And once you have that, it can help prescribe the right solution. I think, you know, in search, you definitely want to make a commitment to that space and understanding where they are in the funnel and building a campaign long-term around that. It's not the type of inventory that you want to do a 2 to 4 week kind of test flight, because it's you've already had the billions of companies do the testing over the last number of years. So it's really how you use it to drive your activation. Building your keywords or phrases is really critical. Again, Ryan gave us some great feedback there about how to go about doing that. Use the AE, use your client, use your friends. Or you could also use Keyword Planner and really understand the different types of keywords, whether they're competitive or negative keywords. Understanding your trading area is another critical piece. So know where your current clients are coming from or where you want to pull them from. Understanding your goals and building your plan to that end is critical. Whether it's to drive qualified traffic to the site, conversions or leads. Have a very specific KPI and measure towards that specifically. Build out your budget and then work with your team to optimize the campaign. And if you do that, you are likely going to get great results. And when you combine search with your ongoing radio program, I think like we said, you've got a real strong 1-2 punch in terms of delivering results for clients.
Victor, there's just one thing that I wanted to touch on when you mentioned commitment. That, you know, this commitment is one thing that I can't stress enough. Google search and SEM in general is not a 2-week flight whatsoever. You know, from what I've seen, the campaigns that are 2 to 3 years old, they've shown to have 300 times more people converting on the website, and this is for the same amount of money as when they started. You know, think about that. How much more profit would you have with 300 times the action on the site? You know, as we discussed, you know, the cost per click can be, higher or lower depending on location. But the cost per click tends to decrease over time. As we continue to refine your campaign, the cost per click is going to come down, and we're going to increase the likelihood of the consumer taking action on the site. Of course, you could try the 2-week flight, but you're going to start your campaign with expensive clicks, and you're going to end your campaign with a poor return on investment. If you want to get an exponential increase in leads, you know, of course, we need time to make it work.
I was just going to say that's an incredibly important part, of actually reducing your cost per click. So campaigns get more efficient as the time goes on. Google's in the business of getting people to click on ads, and they're only going to want to serve the ads that people are clicking on, because that's what makes the money. So if your ad has been optimized properly and you've worked over a longer period of time and that has been running consistently, Google's going to reward you for doing all that heavy lifting with a lower cost, which only goes to your bottom line, being able to deliver more potential clicks, more potential sales to your customer. And it is only dealing with, I think, a company like SOCAS or another provider that you can actually dive into this. I have a little story before we end. I had a multi-furniture store location in one of my cities I was managing, where the owner's spouse was managing their search, because Google's so easy, they know how to Google, so they can manage it themselves. And we fought for 2 years to get that business. And when we did, we were immediately going through a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, and we're able to bring down their costs dramatically through some of the stuff that we were dealing with, through a lot of the best practices we talked about today. Finding a partner rather than doing it yourself is what's going to make the difference in your marketing.
And I think that's a great kind of final thought, John, is that look, we understand there's some clients that are doing it on their own and might be doing a great job. And at SOCAST, we're here to serve our broadcast partners and their advertisers. So if you do have a question about search engine marketing and you do want to bring us to the forefront with your clients, this is the team that is going to bring this stuff to life and help you with your clients sell more product to more people. So Ryan, I want to thank you for dedicating some time and prepping for this meeting and participating today. It's great to see you again, brother. And John and Tom, thank you. I will see you back here at 3 o'clock. A reminder, in 10 minutes, we've got our podcasting webinar with Matt Kundle and John Gay from JAG in Detroit. And then at 3 o'clock, we also have our SOCAST open house. So thank you all for attending. We'll have this deck sent out to everyone who has attended, and we will talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Victor. It's great to be here.
You got it, Ryan. Thanks.